working, as has NASA and many other companies and universities, on ways to mitigate this dust problem. It's invasive. It's quite sharp-edged, which people don't usually think about, but dust on the Earth has been moved around a lot. Air moves it around, the winds, so the edges get knocked off. On the Moon, nothing knocks the edges off, so it can get pretty sharp. So the answer is we're going to incorporate this research that's really been ongoing for quite some time into the designs of the suit itself, the fabrics, the joints at the elbows, shoulders, waist, etc., and the connectors themselves.
I'll be right back with Mark Gittelman of Oceaneering Space Systems. They'll be building America's next spacesuit. This is Planetary Radio.
I'm Sally Ride. After becoming the first American woman in space, I dedicated myself to supporting space exploration and the education and inspiration of our youth. That's why I formed Sally Ride Science, and that's why I support the Planetary Society. The Society works with space agencies around the world and gets people directly involved with real space missions. It takes a lot to create exciting projects like the first solar sail, informative publications like an award-winning magazine, and many other outreach efforts like this radio show. Help make space exploration and inspiration happen. Here's how you can join us.
You can learn more about the Planetary Society at our website, planetary.org/radio, or by calling 1-800-9-WORLDS. Planetary Radio listeners who aren't yet members can join and receive a Planetary Radio t-shirt. Members receive the internationally acclaimed Planetary Report magazine. That's planetary.org/radio. The Planetary Society, exploring new worlds.
Welcome back to Planetary Radio. I'm Mat Kaplan. My guest is the Vice President and General Manager of Oceaneering Space Systems, Mark Gittelman. His company has just been awarded the preliminary contract for development of the Constellation Spacesuit System, or CSSS. Keeping astronauts safe in the new suit is just one of Mark's goals. That comfort issue that you mentioned, that's significant. I'm sure astronauts, given a choice of comfort or safety, will always go for safety. But guys on EVA, guys and women on EVA, have been known to come back a little scraped up and a little black and blue, just trying to deal with the world, or the world above our planet, from inside these suits. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about trying to minimize?
It is, and we expect to work very closely with NASA and the astronauts to make these suits just as comfortable as we possibly can.
I watched a video on the NASA website the other day, and it was sort of the story of one extravehicular activity, and I was impressed with how difficult it was to get in and out of the suits that are currently used on the shuttle and the ISS. Can you really do much about that, or are these folks still going to need some help? I think you said they would, to get in and out of these.
Well, I think they probably will, but we have some ideas, still early ideas, on how to simplify that. And again, after all these years of using these suits and working with them, NASA really has a wealth of information on things that we can do differently. And we intend to tap into that and work closely to enhance the comfort as much as we can and simplify the operations. It's an incremental process. You take your best shot with the early prototypes, evaluate it with engineers and crew, tweak it some, try it again, and that's the approach we're going to take.
Now, it's not entirely fair to ask about the design of this new suit because, after all, you've only just gotten started on it. But I'm also thinking of the gloves, which have received a lot of attention. In fact, NASA had one of its competitions to allow people to try and come up with more flexible, more comfortable designs. Is that a particular area of focus?
It is. Glove comfort is a big deal. If you think about what it's like to wear a pressurized glove, I've heard it described as like squeezing a tennis ball every time you close your hand.
Oh, boy.
It's work. It's not easy. We designed tools, EVA equipment, to try to minimize the hand squeezing that the crew has to do. So comfort does become a big deal, and work becomes a big deal. If you have to squeeze all the time, imagine just how tired your hands and your forearms would get. So one of our teammates has a fair amount of expertise in glove design. We have some long-standing expertise. We have other fresh ideas that have come out of universities and our own design. And as you just said, it's still early in the process, but we think that given all the work that's been done to date, we will be able to make it more comfortable to wear and use those gloves.
I imagine it's helpful that one of your colleagues there, Jim Buckley, I hope I got his last name pronounced correctly, he's been through this. He knows what it's like to wear one of these.
Yes, he does. Jim flew on the shuttle 4 times and was deputy in the astronaut office at NASA. And it's nice to have somebody in the program that has that sort of first-hand knowledge and also close relationship with crew past and present, astronaut crew past and present. We all feel a great deal of ownership when it comes to sort of the deeper meaning of what we're doing here. The space program is one of the great things that this country does. Human spaceflight is one of the unique things that we do in this country and that we pioneered. We're helping NASA and the United States go to the next step in space exploration with humans. For most of us, it goes beyond just being a business. It goes to something a little more emotional than that. And so we really understand deep down inside what it means when we design and build a spacesuit that a human being, a NASA astronaut, is going to get into and stake his life on, if you will, that it's going to work just as intended. Yes, Jim brings that firsthand knowledge, and the rest of us really feel it as well.
Mark, we're about out of time. I was hoping we get to talk about some of the other things you do for NASA and the American Space Program. You mentioned building the tools that we see people using up there generally outside the International Space Station over the last few years. But there's at least one other thing that you do for NASA, and it's operations in the swimming pool that I would most like to take a dip in someday.
You and me both.
That being the Neutral Buoyancy Lab there at the Johnson Space Center.
That's right. It's a 6.2 million gallon tank, 40 feet deep. It's an amazing facility. The astronauts train there for their EVAs, for their spacewalks, and by all accounts, it is the best training that an astronaut can have to get ready for an EVA. And I think it's an important contributor to the success that we see when they get on orbit time after time. They go out there and they nail whatever it is they set out to do, and a huge part of that is the excellence of the training that they receive out at the NBL.
Kind of brings together the two ends of Oceaneering International, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
We are out of time. I want to thank you again for joining us, and congratulations on the award of this contract to develop the Constellation spacesuit systems.
Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. These are exciting times for NASA and for space exploration, and I can't wait to see what the future brings.
Mark Gittelman is Vice President and General Manager at Oceaneering International Incorporated, where he heads the Oceaneering Space Systems Division, which was just given a preliminary contract for development of the CSSS, Constellation Space Suit System. And that's how our astronauts are going to be going outside their protective ships as they float in orbit and walk on the moon sometime roughly 10 or a little bit more than that years from now. We'll be looking at that night sky as we do every week with Bruce Betts. That'll be during this week's edition of What's Up, right after we hear from Emily and Q&A. Emily Lakdawalla is the Science and Technology Coordinator for the Planetary Society. I asked her to forego Q&A's regular format this week so that she could tell us about a scoop she got from someone on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter team. So, Emily, are we now predicting dust storms on Mars?
Apparently we are. The Mars Climate Sounder team member David Cass contacted me last week with news of this first signs of what may be a global dust event on Mars.
How did they arrive at this, since they haven't actually seen dust in any pictures yet?
Right. Mars Climate Sounder is not an imager. It's designed to look at profiles of temperature and pressure above Mars's surface and its atmosphere. In fact, it usually scans across Mars's limb, so it sees only Mars's atmosphere, not the surface. And it's been doing this throughout its mission at Mars. It's now into the second Mars year, so they're looking at year-to-year variability. And they noticed this week a very sharp rise in the temperature